Now, how do you measure engagement? You don't measure engagement. Engagement is a construct. It's a bunch of stuff put together in a configuration. A construct is, I sometimes pull out a bunch of grapes at this point and show people a bunch of grapes. Well, what is a bunch? What's a bunch of grapes? You ever think about that? What's a bunch? What makes a bunch, as opposed to many grapes? And one of the things you look at it, you say, well, first off, you got to have some grapes. Well, suppose I just laid a whole bunch in the quantitative sense, a mess of grapes out here on this table, or on the table in front of you. It says, is that a bunch of grapes? Well, it's many grapes, if that's what you mean. Well, it's a bunch. It came off a bunch, did it not? Yeah. Well, what's the difference between a bunch of grapes is a number, and a bunch of grapes is some other thing, a construct? And so somebody finally said, well, to be a bunch of grapes, and not only have to have many grapes, but you got to have them hung on a stalk, and you got to have them sticking together in some configuration, and pretty soon you begin to see it, and you all can see a bunch of grapes right now, can't you? Because you know what a bunch is. I didn't have to tell you what a bunch was because you got the construct. Well, engagement is that way. Now you can begin to deconstruct that, and you say, well, one of the things we know when we got engagement, one of the things we know is people are paying attention. We can measure attention. We know how to measure attention. We've done a lot of it. Back in the 60s, we did a lot of time on task research. And basically, we looked at attending behavior. So we can measure attention. We can measure another thing that's involved in engagement, which is persistence. Do they stick with the task? And that can be measured. We can measure meaning. Do the students find meaning in the work? Do they find personal value in the work? And that can be measured through interviews and through questions and through observation. You can, and the kind of discussions kids have, you can find out whether their work has any meaning for them. Commitment. That is, are they willing to do the work voluntarily? Because commitment is operationally defined, at least in my judgment, as willingness to allocate scarce resources on a volunteer basis. If you're committed to something, you're willing to take the scarce resources you have and use them on behalf of that thing you're committed to voluntarily. So there's 4 things you can measure. The degree of volunteerism, the degree of persistence, attention, commitment. And those are the 4 things you can, now you measure those, and then you ask yourself, are they coming together in the right configuration? And what often happens is we push on one button, and quite often we drive them from another one. For example, we know attention is important. So we do everything we can do to get the kids to pay attention, and in the process destroy commitment. Or we do everything we can do to get kids committed, and we do everything we can do to destroy meaning. Or we work on meaning and forget about attention. Or we forget about persistence. And all those things have to be working together more like an orchestra. And a teacher really has to, if I use a metaphor of what a teacher is in the learning platform, a teacher is like a good music teacher. That is, they got to keep a whole bunch of different instruments in mind, and they got to be playing all of them.